Hello and welcome to the Odds On Favorites podcast, where we're talking sports, entertainment, and sports entertainment, all with an eye on the bottom line. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell and Taylor Smith. Let's jump right in with news and notes, where we're taking a closer look at the biggest news of the week. We're going to begin in the NBA. The NBA draft is Thursday night, which is probably before you're seeing this, but after we finished recording it. So let's start off with last weekend's big trade. Los Angeles Lakers traded for Anthony Davis as he joins LeBron James's bid to bring the Lakers back to the promised land. Los Angeles now by far the betting favorite to win the 2020 NBA championship with odds at a mere plus 300. Milwaukee Bucks are the second most favored team, and they're at plus 700. So are you buying into the Lakers, Rick?
No, I'm not. First of all, I hate the Lakers. Second of all, I've always hated the Lakers. Third of all, they're a two-man team right now. You got to see how they're going to fill out the rest of the roster. I mean, they got Kuzma also, but I was watching Max Kellerman the other day, and he brought up a good point, talking about how they wanted Anthony Davis to waive his $4 million trade bonus or whatever that $4 million he was getting, so the Lakers weren't on the hook for it. Or so the Lakers had more money so they can tinker with the roster more. And the point he was making, though, was why are you going to have this guy basically pay a tax for coming to play with the Lakers when you should have figured this all out before you traded for him? If Kuzma's not your number 3 player, then why did you keep him? Why didn't you put him in the trade? Why didn't you do something else? Basically, the point is this. They have maybe 2.5 players, if you count Kuzma as the half. They need to fill out the rest of the roster, which they probably will get some veterans and stuff that maybe a few they had even last season. But a healthy Golden State with Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, provided they stay, are a better team than the Lakers. At Toronto, if they keep Kawhi Leonard, is a better team than the Lakers. I think Houston could be a better team than the Lakers. There's other teams that I think even if the 76ers, if they get their act together, could be a better team than the Lakers. LeBron's great, obviously. Davis is a great big man. And don't sleep on my Sacramento Kings yet, okay? Let's see what they do this offseason. They got a lot of money. They're coming to be aggressive in free agency. I don't like the Lakers to win the championship next year. I've never liked the Lakers, period. But I just think this is just hype because of this trade. And, people are just pretty excited over it and stuff. But, no, they're not winning the title in 2020. I would pick Toronto to win back-to-back before I pick the Lakers.
That's a bold statement.
It's really a lack of value. Plus 300 is just way too low for a team we don't know what it's going to look like. We know they have Anthony Davis. We know they have LeBron and Kuzma. But, last summer, this front office, Magic was there, but Rob Pelinka is still the GM. After they got LeBron James, they followed that up by signing Rajon Rondo, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee, and Michael Beasley. Like the worst possible group of 4 to surround LeBron James with. So I don't trust them to actually make good signings now that they do have Anthony Davis. We'll see if they get that max spot. Even if they do clear the money, I'm not convinced they actually get anyone. I don't know that Kyrie's going there or Kemba or anyone like that. So I just think plus 300 is ludicrous. It's just not good value. You can get a team like Toronto at plus 1,000. You can get Philly at plus 1,200, Houston plus 800, I think. Even Milwaukee, who was the best team in the NBA last year, at plus 700. I would take that way before I would take the Lakers at plus 300. It'd be more interesting if it was like plus 1,000, but plus 300 is just insane. I can't see it. I don't see the point in betting it. If you do like the Lakers and must bet on them, I would just wait until like December. If they get off to a crappy start, those odds are going to tumble and you're going to get way better value. So plus 300, I would not do that at all right now.
Yeah, there's no real value on the Lakers right now because I agree with you. It's to get a 3-to-1 payout when free agency hasn't opened, when the teams haven't played a game, when you don't know. I mean, I can't see that like those odds being any worse in 6 months. The crazy thing to me was that the Lakers were favored at plus 600. They were still the odds-on favorites to win the NBA championship before the trade. And Taylor and I had talked on a video that we did that we then had to redo because the trade happened before we could post it, where we were saying that, yeah, plus 600 would have made some sense if the Lakers had made a handful of moves. Like if the Anthony Davis trade had come through at that point, you go, okay, they still are a non-playoff team that's added one piece. But, there's so many teams that are so much more worth it that would get you 4 times the payout. The Sixers are a great example. The Raptors have whatever. The one thing I will say, though, is that, Rick, when you were going through a lot of the teams that you would rather place the wager on, what you said leading into every single one of them is could be or otherwise added a question mark. And I do think that while there are certainly a lot of question marks for the Lakers because you don't know how they're going to play together, you don't know how players 3 and beyond, and as far as the depth goes, are going to contribute. But there are still, at this point in the offseason, before the draft, before free agency, a lot of question marks for every other team. There are question marks for the Lakers as well, not saying there aren't, but there are question marks for every team. So I do think that it's one of those points when you're this early in the offseason, plus 300 odds are not worth a wager. Literally 11 and a half months before the NBA champion is going to get crowned. But there are question marks for every team, the Lakers included. With Anthony Davis, they still have a lot of question marks, I would say. So let's move on to Give Me Props, where we're looking at some prop bets that caught our eye this week. We stick with the NBA and that Lakers-Pelicans trade. My book, you set the over-under for Anthony Davis's points per game this coming season at 25.5, paying off at minus 115 on either side. Taylor, will Anthony Davis be able to top that mark this season?
So that's a really tough one because that's like the threshold for a LeBron teammate. I was just looking at it. The Dwayne Wade in LeBron's first season in Miami is the only guy that LeBron's ever played with that has averaged 25.5 points or more per game. And he averaged exactly 25.5 that season. Kevin Love never got there. Kyrie never got there. Wade never got there again, Bosh, etc. Anthony Davis has averaged 25 or more each of the last 3 seasons. I'm inclined to take the under there just because at this point there is a chance they land a third star, Jimmy Butler, someone like that. If that guy comes in, that obviously takes some shots away from LeBron and AD. Kuzma's still there. I would take the under. LeBron's usage is just high enough to where Davis is going to see, I think, a hit in his scoring naturally. And he's not, James Harden when it comes to scoring in the first place. He's a great scorer himself, but I just think it's reasonable to expect he'll take a hit in the scoring department. So I would take the under there, pending free agency. We'll see what happens. You can revisit that bet, I guess, closer to the season once the dust is settled. But for now, I take the under.
How is he going to coexist with LeBron James? It's not like LeBron James is an outside scoring threat. It's not like he sits there and shoots from 3 all the time or even has a good pull-up jumper. He's taking it to the lane or he's posting up or he's at least driving and dishing. Where's Davis going to stand at if LeBron's trying to crash the lane and stuff? I think it's going to take some time for them to get used to each other in terms of just where to be on the floor. Right now they have no other outside scorers on the team, and it's not like free agency is going to be, ripe for the pickings. And who knows if they would even have the money for some of that. That's what I mean. Like this Lakers team and the pieces that they're trying to put together, to have them as the betting favorite is just crazy right now. I would rather bet on the Warriors getting healthy before the playoffs next year than the Lakers, or OKC getting out from under their luxury tax and keeping Adams to go with PG-13 and Westbrook than the Lakers. Like there's other teams that I would rather bet on that have a better chance to gel as a team, to have success than the Lakers. Now, I'll go with the under. I don't see how he's going to score 26 points per game with LeBron and no scorers right now. Once again, it's, like you guys are saying, this is something that you should exercise patience with. If you have to hop on this prop bet now because you're all fired up for the trade and the draft and everything else, and you're going through NBA withdrawals, then bet the under.
I would agree with you guys. And Taylor, that's a really interesting point with the stats on the LeBron teammate ceiling. And obviously he's had some really good players that he's played with Miami and Cleveland. So yeah, I would just agree with both of you guys. It's to go through the growing pains, and that's going to hinder the ability to have that like season-long average. Because even if it takes only 10, 15 games, it's still going to take a chunk out of the average. But yeah, when LeBron is on your team, there are going to be fewer opportunities for you to actually put up points just because LeBron James is LeBron James. For New Orleans, the Pelicans landed a package of picks and players that included Lonzo Ball. Over-under on his points per game in 2019-20 set right at 11, paying at minus 115 on either side. So, Rick, which way should this wager go? Can Lonzo Ball break 11 points a game?
Lonzo Ball sucks, okay? De'Aaron Fox was better than him in college. Fox is better than him as a pro. Why don't we have a prop bet of how much more Fox scores than Ball per game, per average, whatever you want to do, because this is ridiculous. This is another bet. Like, New Orleans is in the position where they're putting all these pieces together to build around Zion. Okay, so Zion's never played one pro game yet. We've seen Ball play in the NBA, and I'm not sold on him at all as being a number one, number two, or even a number three player for a team. So to have him scoring double, you would think someone that was supposed to be so hyped and talented can score at least 10 points per game in this cream puff NBA up and down scoring at will, nobody plays defense league. But he's been a bust. Like, I put him up there as being a bust. And we don't know what New Orleans is going to put together right now. They got picks. They got some other Lakers players. They got Holiday. They got Zion. They got a few pieces like that. But who knows what Ball's going to do with them. I wouldn't even touch this one either until we saw how the roster was shaping up during the summer. But if, once again, like with Davis, if you had to pick, I'd go with the under. I don't see this team gelling well at first. They're going to have too many rookies, too many young players. They might be fun in a couple years, but I wouldn't even touch this bet. Like, stay away from this one.
I do have to point out really quick, average scoring in the NBA over the last 5 seasons matches that of right around the earlier mid-'80s, just to throw that out there as far as the high-scoring, score-at-will, no-defense kind of league. But, Taylor, you can also give your response. Do you think he's under 11 points as well? Or are you going to match Rick's take on Lonzo Ball?
I really like Lonzo Ball. I'm bullish on him as a prospect. I think he's pretty good. He's, kind of been in an unfair situation. Spotlight of the Lakers, plus his dad's not doing him any favors. Plus he had to play with LeBron for a year. And I think getting out of that spotlight, going to a smaller market like New Orleans for what I think is a good coach and a decent situation, I think is going to help him. But his career high is 10.2 points per game. That was during his rookie year. Last year he averaged 9.9. It's just tough to see where his shots are going to come from. Zion will be a focal point. Brandon Ingram, I think, will command more usage offensively. Drew Holiday is still there, assuming he will still be there. And Lonzo is just not a good shooter. He shot 45% and 41% from the free throw line across his 2 first seasons.
He's terrible.
Not a great three-point shooter. It's more a concern about where the shots are going to come from. I think the pace New Orleans will play at is conducive to higher scoring. More possessions gives them more opportunities. But I'd take the under here as well, just because I think it's going to be pretty low on the totem pole as far as options offensively. So I would take the under, but I will note that I think he's going to be a good player. I have to vouch for Lonzo.
He could be good, but he ain't going to be great. De'Aaron Fox is going to be great. Ball, terrible.
Since when is 11 points a game the benchmark for being a great player?
11 points. That's what I'm saying. 11 points per game is terrible.
Right.
Like, he's not even a good player. He's never going to be a great player. He's terrible. How does a starting player not average double-digit points? Come on, 10.2. That's terrible.
I will say that for his career, he is right at 10 points per game.
That's terrible. Drew can get 10 points a game.
A lot of other things well.
Just for the record, in my professional career, I've scored, I believe it's 8 points in about 2 minutes of
There you go.
playing time. It was against the Harlem Globetrotters in 2 separate games. Came off the bench really quick, hit a layup once, and then they had like a triple points session at one point. So
Were you playing for the Washington Generals or something?
I played for the Washington Generals once, and then Team Select the other time.
Wow.
So I'm a journeyman, obviously.
Yeah.
You would score 10.3 points per game.
But would I hit 11 in Lonzo's shoes? Would I hit 11 points?
No.
If the defense is focusing on Zion, and you got wide open looks, who knows?
I don't know. I'm a bit more like George Costanza was playing. I'm a bit of a chucker. Just take the ball and just throw it up.
You'll be coming off the bench, so I don't see you getting more than 11 points.
J.R. Smith, what you're saying?
Yeah, there you go. Sure. I'll play a few minutes just so this way, someone else who's got in foul trouble can get a breather and hustle back on defense and maybe score once. The fact that I'm 5'8" might not exactly, help in the modern NBA. But
Muggsy Bogues was 5'3". Anything's possible.
that's very true.
Just work on that half-court shot.
I'm not quite as athletic as Muggsy Bogues.
Fair enough.
It's, a smidge, less, but. Let's move on to some easy money because everybody likes some easy money. And Rick, and you can't make this that I would, be able to score 10 points a game in the NBA. Although if you did, I'd think you were crazy. But Rick, what is your easy money lock of the week this week?
I'm going NASCAR because we're back after a week off. And, it feels good to have some racing back. We need some racing in our life. And we're going to be in California at Sonoma, a little over an hour away from me. First road course of the year. We'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show. I'm going with a driver matchup. I like Clint Boyer over Denny Hamlin. I like Clint Boyer over just about the majority of the drivers this weekend. But the Denny Hamlin one was pretty good in terms of matchup odds and stuff like that. He was barely a slight favorite over Hamlin, depending on which betting site you're looking at. It was anywhere from 110 to 130 in there, and Hamlin was right around minus 110 or plus 100, depending on the betting site. Boyer has actually won at this track. Denny Hamlin's never won here. Boyer's raced well here the last couple of years. Hamlin has not. Hamlin's having a better year so far this year, but Boyer's raced consistently. He knows how to run the road courses, and he's pretty solid at Sonoma, and I really like this matchup. That's where my easy money is going.
Taylor, what's your easy money pick this week?
I'm going to the Gold Cup. I know this is a big soccer show. I got to get this in here. The USA on June 22nd, I believe that would be Saturday, is playing Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is the team that beat the United States in World Cup qualifying a couple of years ago to oust the U.S. from the World Cup. So this is kind of a revenge game for the Americans. They're a 1.5 favorites, minus 500 on the money line. I think I would take the U.S. to cover the spread there. Minus 1.5 is just really low. They looked good in their first match the other night. I think they'll come out wanting to put Trinidad and Tobago to the sword for what they did to them a couple of years ago. So I'll take the USA as a homer to cover the spread.
Opposite of that is Clear as Mud, the game fighter event. It seems so unpredictable. We're keeping Clear away from any betting on it. Taylor, you get to go first. And once again, no Stanley Cup playoffs to go at this time. So what is your pick this week?
I'm going to go back to the NBA. I just don't see the point in betting on next year's NBA Finals a year ahead of time. The odds aren't even that favorable for anybody. If I would take anyone, it would probably be Toronto, just at plus 1,000. But I would wait till the draft and free agency and all that is settled before even considering betting on the NBA. So just don't do that right now.
I agree with that. I mean, 100%. You're absolutely right. For me, though, I'm going with Bellator's main card this week. I didn't like a lot of the betting odds, even though there's potential for some upsets. Well, and that's part of it, too, because of the potential for some upsets. The big favorites just they're not even worth taking a chance on. And so if you can't really feel 100% confident or even close to that in a favorite, and you're not willing to take a chance on the long shots, and there's not a whole lot of other value on the main card, then stay away from it.
It's that time of the podcast for everyone to feel old when they realize Jerry Maguire is 23 years old this year. That's because it's time for Show Me the Money! Lines where we look ahead to this weekend's games and events and their current money lines. After Justin Bieber backed out of the MMA fight that he himself proposed against Tom Cruise, we should address the other celebrity-involved MMA challenge from last week. Conor McGregor challenged Mark Wahlberg to a fight with the actor's stake in UFC on the line. Believe it or not, BetOnline actually posted odds or lines briefly for this not going to happen fight. McGregor was obviously favored, but only at minus 500, with Wahlberg at plus 300. How much of your money would you be willing to bet on McGregor at those odds if a fight were to actually happen, Taylor? And by the way, all of it is a totally acceptable answer.
So I'd say all of it if I could be assured that Conor McGregor was going to give his full effort. You know, if he's going to be half-assing it and stuff, I don't know if I can fully back him with all my money because that's a pretty big risk. But plus Mark Wahlberg, like, he seems to be in pretty good shape. So it's not out of the question that he could just land one on McGregor and just completely knock him out. I kind of think McGregor's a fake tough guy in the first place. But, yeah, minus 5, that's really weird that Wahlberg's only plus 300. Yeah, I think I would take McGregor pretty easily there, but it's still crazy. So
I like that you just called McGregor a fake tough guy and then picked the actor to beat him in an MMA fight.
I'm saying it's not impossible that he could sneak one in there and just, you know, knock him out. And because McGregor's pretty wiry in the first place, you know, like it's not out of the question that he could be knocked out. So it's possible.
Rick, do you want to defend Conor McGregor's honor a bit here?
I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say. Like, we might have to reshoot this whole segment. Woo! Taylor.
One take. Keep it going.
Getting me fired up over here, Taylor. Man, this is almost like you guys talking about Larry Bird or something. You know what's funny is Marky Mark, first of all, I never call him Mark Wahlberg. It's always going to be Marky Mark. For those of us that grew up in the 90s, in high school when that song came out, and we're trying to pick up on the ladies in high school with that song, walking around with no shirt on, with our pants sagging so our boxers are showing off, curling with cinder blocks. That's what we did back in the 90s because of Marky Mark. But with that said, he's like 48 years old now. He's 48 years old, okay? He's like 15 years older than Conor. If this is an MMA fight, he has absolutely no chance. He might not even make it past 2 or 3 minutes. In a boxing match, he might be able to go a couple rounds because he is athletic. He does have a little size. I don't know what size they would fight at. If I was McGregor, I wouldn't even care, to be honest. The funny thing, though, is you have to give McGregor – I mean, first of all, McGregor would kill him. Okay, let's just leave it at that. But the funny thing is this, and you have to give McGregor this credit. Dude is like on Twitter 24/7. Okay, he saw Justin Bieber's challenge to Tom. First of all, I hate Justin Bieber. Okay, I really despise this individual. You know what? He calls out Tom Cruise. First of all, last week I said I wanted to fight Bieber. I want to fight him even more now. This time I don't want it to be MMA or boxing. I want it to be bare knuckle fighting championship. Put us as the co-main event for the next big title fight or the next big event they have in a couple months. With that said, how do you challenge somebody on social media to a fight and say they're scared, they're a punk if they don't accept it, and then 3 or 4 days later you go on TMZ and tell them, oh, I was just messing around. He probably beat me up anyways. He's got that dad strength and stuff like that. You suck, Justin Bieber. So getting back to Marky Mark and Conor McGregor. McGregor saw that tweet and was all over it. He's like, I'll even promote that fight. And then he went out and challenged Marky Mark to that. What has come from his challenge is this. He's now got professional boxers coming out to defend Marky Mark. Marky Mark is in a managerial position of Regis Prograis, who's one of the top junior welterweights in the world. He's a champion. He's he's a stud. He's undefeated. He came right out and challenged Conor McGregor to a fight to defend Wahlberg. And he said, I'll do a 2-fight with you. I'll fight you even in MMA, and I'll fight you in boxing. It's like, I'll destroy you in boxing, and I'll probably beat you in MMA also. So you got people coming out now that are really just trashing McGregor for challenging an actor that's almost 50 years old, okay? With that said, in a typically down period of time with sports and sports news and stuff, to have this come out at this time was perfect timing for all of us, for betting sites, for social media, for us on this show and stuff, because it gave us something exciting to talk about, get us a little fired up a little bit. But none of these fights are going to happen except me and Justin Bieber.
That was a lot. That was great. McGregor is very, very good when it comes to doing his own marketing. And I think that's basically what this is. And that's what Justin Bieber tried to do. And you can look at the difference between the two and realize just how much better McGregor is at doing that, because it was very, I don't want to sound like Darren Ravel, but very on brand of him to do that. Bieber, meanwhile, just comes off as a punk. McGregor comes off as Conor McGregor. This is McGregor's stuff. He did the thing with Floyd, and now he's just like, he's on to the next thing. It's like, oh yeah, Justin, you want to do that? Cool. I'll co-main event it. I'll promote it, and I'm going to challenge Marky Mark. Let's go. And it's like, before you knew anything, he had turned something that was just completely ridiculous into something that brought a lot of attention to him, and that's good for him for doing that. All of the money obviously on McGregor, because if it's actually going to be a legitimate, it's not going to happen, but if it did and it would be a legitimate fight, it's McGregor. Even if you think he's a faux tough guy, Marky Mark just portrays a tough guy sometimes.
Exactly. Like, who wants to see Marky Mark get knocked out? If it was Donnie, now that's another story. Not Marky Mark.
See, now what I would like to see, though, is Tom Cruise versus Mark Wahlberg.
Wahlberg would win.
You got two different levels of crazy. But
yes, Wahlberg's got some street toughness to him and more athleticism. Tom Cruise moved around a lot. He lived in Canada growing up. They're not fighters in Canada. And
hockey players aren't fighters.
No. There's no street toughness there. If he was on a pair of ice skates, I'd give him the advantage.
All right, so we're going to do it'll be a best of three. It'll be boxing, MMA, and a hockey fight. Cruise and Wahlberg. If somehow Conor McGregor ends up watching this, hey, how about that to headline your card? And then you could fight Justin Bieber as the co-main event. That would be more entertaining, because you'd actually have like some intrigue in that, what's going to happen with. Anyway, let's move to actual going to happen mixed martial arts fighting. UFC and Bellator both in action this weekend. Let's go to Bellator first. Bellator 223. Main event features Gegard Mousasi, favored to win at minus 555. I'm sure Rick is going to correct me on how to pronounce some of these. Taking on Rafael Lovato Jr., who is a plus 405 underdog. Rick, any chance of getting a good payday on the underdog here?
Yes, there is a good chance. This is one of the reasons why I was saying, stay away from this card. Mousasi himself even said, if Lovato were to get him down on the mat and implement his jiu-jitsu skills on him, he would win. Mousasi flat out said the other guy, his opponent, could beat him if he got him down in a grappling, because that's how elite his grappling skills are. Mousasi's going to come in there, and he said it in an interview recently. He said, I'm going to come in there, and my goal is to knock him out. I come in there to knock people out. That's what he does. He's not going to come in there and try and have a technical grappling exhibition or try and take it to the mat where he can defeat his opponent. No, he comes in there to knock someone's head off. That's his goal. Another thing that I liked about him was he says he doesn't love MMA. He doesn't hate MMA. This is his job. And he comes to do his job, and he wants to win, and he wants to stay healthy. So he approaches it differently. For Lovato, this is like his biggest shot of his career. And the funny thing is he's only got 9 fights, which is a quarter of what Mousasi has, but he's older than Mousasi. He just got into the game a little bit late. With that said, this fight was supposed to happen in January. Mousasi got injured. And so now they had to, push it back, and now it's finally happened. And instead of just taking on another fight, Lovato went and did some grappling matches to keep himself busy in the meantime. His jiu-jitsu skills are on point. If he can get it to the mat, he has a shot at winning. I believe he's worthy of a flyer because of that, because he has the clear-cut advantage on the mat. Problem is he going to be able to get it to the mat? Because if he gets one of these power shots, he's out cold.
Yeah, I don't think the odds are really that favorable. Plus 405 is obviously a nice payday, but I think Rick just laid out a pretty good case as to why that's not a good idea. So just trust Rick on this one.
I hope so.
We are in the Rick portion of the show this week, since we've made him talk golf in the past and some baseball and all that stuff. So UFC's in South Carolina for UFC Fight Night. Main event features Renato Moicano, rather, favored at -210 against the Korean Zombie at +170. Rick, what do you think here?
Okay, listen, first of all, the Korean Zombie is the second best nickname in all of MMA right now. The best one in all of MMA, and I give him credit, giving them the props. The Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, is, he looks like him, only about 30 years younger, because every time we see Bob Ross, even on the shirt, he still looks like he's 60. With that said, though, the Korean Zombie is an awesome fighter. Like, once you watch him fight one time, you're hooked on him. This guy never backs down. He takes a beating and just keeps going forward. It's going to be an incredible fight. We're either going to get a fight of the year or someone's going to get knocked out early on. I mean, that's pretty much what it's coming down to. I've read a bunch of the predictions and stuff, and a lot of UFC fighters that I've seen are picking the Korean Zombie to win because of his pressure style. The problem is I have concerns because Moicano is probably has the power advantage, and he definitely has the reach and striking distance advantage, and he's a better grappler overall. However, Korean Zombie can hold his own down there, and if he can close the distance and get it into like some dirty boxing or in a clinch, he can win this fight. I'm going with the upset with this one, partly because I love watching him fight, and partly because he has the style that can beat Moicano. It's just a matter of whether or not he can close the distance quick enough, not get there too soon so he gets taken down, but can keep it upright and fight. I'm excited for this fight. Like, this is going to be a great fight. This is a fight of the year candidate if it can go the full distance. It's definitely a knockout or fight of the night honors candidate with the two people you have in here. I don't think UFC could have done a better job on short notice to put together a better main event in terms of action than this one. This one's going to be great. Lots of fireworks.
This is the part of the show where I just turn my brain off and let Rick do everything. So,
all right. Well, in that case, let's move on to NASCAR, because NASCAR returns to action this weekend at Sonoma Raceway for the Toyota Save Mart 350 road course. And that means now Rick was explaining this to me before we went on. What that means is that NASCAR drivers are going to turn right as well as left. Did I get that right, Rick? Is that what?
Got it right.
Okay. Just seems so foreign to me. Rick, who are you taking to win here when they have to turn both right and left?
Okay. Road courses, it used to be where they would have the road course specialists come in there, and they would be the threats to win, because you would have like maybe a handful of main drivers that had a shot of competing against the road course specialists, like Robbie Gordon or Morissette or one of those guys or something like that. And then you had guys like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart, who, first of all, Gordon has the most wins at 5 at Sonoma for career, and Tony Stewart second with 3 for career. Nobody else has more than 2. However, 2 of the 5 guys that have 2 wins is Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., who are both in this race. Both of them have a shot at winning this race. A lot of betting sites have Kevin Harvick as the odds-on favorite. And I've been saying for at least a month or two now, don't bet on Kevin Harvick until you actually see him win a race. Every time he's the favorite or one of the favorites, he has failed to take a checker flag this year. This is the dude that won 8 races last year. It was in competition to win the championship at the end. He hasn't won 1 race yet. He's only been competitive for the flag in about 3 or 4 of the 15 races this year. Stay away from Harvick, okay? Kyle Busch is a possibility, but for me, you got to take away. I know Taylor's probably looking at Joey Logano, who's in first place in the standings, but Joey's never won at this track. Keselowski, who's 3rd in the standings, has never won in this track. Chase Elliott, who's 5th in the standings, has never won in this track. Denny Hamlin's never won at this track. On and on and on and on. This is a hard course. So you got to look at the people that actually are good road course drivers who have won here before. We just ruled out Harvick. So we still got Truex, Clint Boyer, both Busch brothers, even Jimmy Johnson. Okay? Out of all those guys, I'm going with my man Martin Truex Jr. to win. He didn't do so well at Pocono when I picked him a couple races ago. He had car problems and ended up finishing 35th or 36th overall. He won this race last year. He would have run the race in 2017. He led the most laps, but he had engine problems. So he got taken out of the race because of it. Harvick won that race in 2017. Truex would be coming into this race winning 2 in a row if he didn't have car problems. 2, he had the best car that in 2017. He had the best car last year. I expect him to qualify well. And in a road course like Sonoma, qualifying is huge. So when we make these predictions today, we don't know where they're qualifying at yet. And that makes it a little more challenging because if you're like 25th, you're going to have a hard time getting up to the front because this isn't like an oval track where there's a lot of spots to pass people at. You got to wait and pick one of your spots, and it's not that easy. And then with your pit stalls where they're located, where you qualify at, how other people are running ahead of time or ahead of you, this is a tough race. That's what makes road courses more fun. I'm taking my man Truex. He was the 2nd odds-on favorite with Bet Online. He's like 3rd or 4th with some other sports betting sites, anywhere from plus 450 to plus 600. I'm going with Truex to win this race. Stay away from Harvick.
Taylor, you just heeding Rick's advice for this one?
Well, I actually did have something to say, but then Rick said it. Joey Logano has finished outside the top 10 back-to-back years at this event. He did finish 3rd in 2016, but like you said, that's my boy. That's usually who I cite as my betting pick. But plus 1,000 is a little bit alluring, but I'll just go with Truex. Like you said, he won it last year. It's different than a normal race, so it's kind of wonky with the odds, but it still has pretty familiar names at the top. I would stay away from Harvick. I would take Truex. I see plus 400 on that, which is pretty decent. So do that.
Clint Boyer is another one to watch out for this week because he's won here before, and I mentioned him in my easy money pick in the head-to-head battle with Denny Hamlin. And he's raced well the last couple years here. And although he hasn't won yet in 2019, this could be the race he wins because he's typically strong there. So, like I was saying, if you shrink your pool down to the people who have actually won there before, there's only 6 active drivers who have won there before. Okay, nobody else has won here. And we're talking a race that's the 31st edition of the Sonoma race. It's not easy to win at. So whether it's Truex, whether you take Kyle Busch or Clint Boyer, or even Jimmy Johnson, who's plus 2,500, you have to take into consideration that we're not dealing with the typical oval track race in here, and that really shrinks your pool down of potential winners. And now watch, somebody will win here for the first time and make us all look silly, and it'll just be crazy. And if that were to happen, and if it's Joey Logano, I don't even know what to say.
Well, I would imagine you'd be saying whoops in about a week. So we'll see on that. Let's do a quick wrestling one for the road, because I know how much Taylor's a huge fan of wrestling. Rick and I have a full betting breakdown of this weekend's WWE pay-per-view Stomping Grounds on the Payoff, which you can find on the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel. Becky One Belt Lynch defends her last remaining championship Sunday against Lacey Evans. Lynch a minus 350 favorite with Evans the underdog at plus 250. Rick, any chance that the lady of WWE takes down the man?
Nope, not at this point. And actually, I don't think this feud has gone as well as they were hoping for. It's kind of sputtered out a little bit. I believe the Alexa Bliss-Bayley feud has actually heated up and picked up more and is more interesting than the feud for the Raw Women's title. I'm still a fan of Becky Lynch. Lacey Evans' gimmick just does not resonate with fans right now. She's not somebody that people are invested in. When she gets in the ring, she's talented. When she puts on matches with other talented wrestlers, they're good matches. So she's got that going for her. She's not bad on the mic. It's just nobody really cares right now whether she wins or not. You'd have to put her up against, if you put her up against Bayley, she would have a better shot at winning. And people might be a little more invested because they think maybe there's a little bit more of a chance she wins. Not against Becky Lynch. They're not going to have their main female superstar right now lose on a throwaway pay-per-view for no reason. It's pointless. No, she's not losing.
Taylor, I know that you're not necessarily a WWE aficionado. Would you like to give your pick of the man versus the lady?
No, I think you should instead.
I think it's Becky Lynch. That's what I agree with Rick on it. It's they took one title off of her already. I don't think that they're going to take both. And I do think Becky Lynch is very well suited to the chase, but I agree with Rick on it. It's the other championship match is more interesting, and that is previewed on the payoff. But right now, we're at the time of the podcast, my favorite segment of the week. That's what we just call Whoops, our chance to come clean about something we projected, predicted, or pushed that we were really wrong about, and to explain ourselves. So I'm going to go first to get us going here. I'm going to go back to our baseball show from last week. I picked Matthew Boyd over Jacob deGrom in daily fantasy. That was basically a case of overanalyzing things instead of just looking at it from the perspective of it was Jacob deGrom against Matthew Boyd, which should have been an obvious pick. And instead, basically, looked at all of the numbers to convince myself that going with Matthew Boyd would have been the pick. And as we're sitting right here, since the College World Series pick, I still have one pending. That may end up being the one that cost me a cycle from last week for betting for the cycle. Taylor, what's your whoops of the week this week?
I did the same thing, so we can suffer with that one together. But my whoops will be College World Series related. I picked Arkansas to make the final. Not only did they not make the final, they did not win a single game. They lost 2 games in a row and were eliminated in very short order. So that was a horrible pick, and that's my whoops of the week.
Rick, what do you got?
I'm going back to cycling. I talked about it last week with Chris Froome being injured. We had more details released since then. He had a fracture. He was airlifted from the accident, which we didn't know at that time. He lost 4 pints of blood at the scene because he crashed into a wall going about 40 miles an hour. Fractured ribs, sternum, all sorts of stuff. He was in ICU for a while. He was my pick to win. And then I picked Adam Yates, and I can't even pronounce the guy's last name, Krychik. Those were my 3 picks for the podium. Froome obviously withdrew because of his accident. Yates withdrew with 50 kilometers left on the final stage on Sunday because he had an upset stomach. Once again, just like with Kiki, one of my picks ends up leaving because of diarrhea. And the other guy pulled out that stage also. So Yates was second. He was second overall. And the other guy was 5th. So I got to go whoops there. You can never tell when you have a bad case of diarrhea.
I apparently, if Rick picks you for an obscure, less than most common sport, that's when you can know. We're about to close the window here. One last chance to get some things in. Closing line is set. Looking for some final thoughts. Rick, let you go with your final thoughts. What do you got?
I just mentioned diarrhea, and that brings me back to Justin Bieber. Bieber, he really just, it really bothers me what he did. And this is one of the bad things about social media is, you just have fools just saying verbal diarrhea or keyboard warriors, or there's just fake tough guys that say stuff on social media and then they never back it up. There's a lot of people like that. I've occasionally got a few leave comments on some of my articles, but then don't want to respond after I reply. I guess that's a whole nother story. We'll get into that one later. With that said, there's a lot of exciting events this weekend. I'm not going to take up all this time because I know Taylor wants to talk about soccer or golf or something like that. There's some exciting events this weekend. We didn't get to talk about the bare knuckle fighting championship. I'm fired up for that main event fight. I'm hoping Malignaggi can win it, the Magic Man, because Conor McGregor and his boy Artem, they did him wrong 2 years ago when he went and helped Conor train for the Floyd fight. They've been blasting and bashing on him in the public. I hope he can go in there and either break his hand on Artem's face or he actually wins the fight overall. The only thing I would say about this, that's some pretty gruesome stuff. So if you got a weak stomach, don't watch bare knuckle fighting championship because it's pretty bloody for as long as the fights last. Yeah.
Good advice. Taylor, go for the closing line. Take us home strong.
So during the show, this news broke about how MLB has given the Rays the opportunity to explore playing half their games in Tampa and half their games in Montreal. I don't understand how this could ever possibly work. You're going to convince two different cities to build new stadiums to have half the amount of home games they would have normally. It's not like they're St. Pete and Tampa or Staten Island and Manhattan or something. This is Florida and Canada. And you're going to be going back and forth and splitting the games. That just makes no sense. I don't see how the Rays could pitch free agents like, oh, come play for us, where you can play in Tampa and Montreal and,
on the road, 3/4
different apartments. Yeah, it makes no sense. It seems like a ploy. I think they're just going to wind up moving full-time to Montreal at some point. It could be a bluff just to get Tampa to be like, oh, no, we might actually lose them. Let's build them a stadium. It's just unfeasible that a team could split time between two cities that far apart, I think. So it's interesting. It's a pretty fascinating story to read, but I don't think it has nothing to do with betting, but I don't think that'll actually happen. I guess maybe at some point you can bet on whether that will happen. I would say no.
Yeah. Writing seems to be on the wall there because that's what happened when the Expos started playing a quarter of their games, or home games anyway, in Puerto Rico. They relocated to Washington, D.C. within a year or two. So we will see what happens with that. But that'll do it for this edition of the Odds On Favorites podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel. And check out gamblingsites.org for plenty more from these guys here. They're Taylor Smith and Rick Rockwell. I'm Drew Goldfarb. We will all see you next time.